Anyone who has ever played video games for a long time probably has at least one game they wish they never played. Not because it was terrible, not because it was a waste of money. They wish they never played it because they want to play it again for the first time. For the fortunate among us, many games have blessed us and cursed us in this way. For me, the special connection between these games that makes them so painful to play again relates to how they handle one very important thing: information. Once you piece together the mystery of her story, you can never play it again without already knowing which keywords to type in and which clips to look for. After you've completed the Outer Wilds, the secrets of the solar system have been revealed. Once you know, you know. And when you know, you can't have the same experience. Finishing these kinds of games has always been bittersweet for me. Some of the most amazing games I've ever played are these knowledge-based games. And as someone who loves the genre, I'm always on the hunt for the next cerebral game to scratch my itch. Fortunately, 2022 delivered one of the best, if not the best, knowledge-based games I've ever played. When I first encountered Tunic, I was browsing Xbox Game Pass for something new to play. The art style jumped out: cute, accessible, colorful. It looked pretty casual, and the image of a small fox dressed like Link was charming enough to get me to watch the trailer. This is when I was initially tipped off that something more was going on. The trailer definitely showcases the little fox running around doing Legend of Zelda things, but then the tone changes. Massive stone robots fire deadly beams, masked figures with rifles protect a creepy industrial quarry. My interest was piqued, and I thusly began my 20-odd hour journey into an unforgettable gaming experience that topped every other in 2022. Which is why Tunic is my game of the year. As a brief disclaimer, due to the aforementioned nature of Tunic, my footage in this video only spans up until the 1 hour mark, and anything considered a spoiler has very intentionally been avoided. You should definitely go in knowing nothing, or as close to nothing as possible. With that out of the way, let's get into why this game impressed me so much. Tunic seems a bit simplistic from the get-go, yet there is a wealth of perplexity to uncover. At the very start, you awaken on a beach, having received no information on where you are or why. Similarly, you as the player receive no instructions on the controls or any starting objective. The UI has 2 little status bars and 3 blank circles. Again, no explanation for what they indicate. You're welcome to button mash the controller a bit if you want, but not much happens. This marks the start of what becomes one of Tunic's largest mysteries: how to play the game. I was immediately struck by this. As a lifelong gamer, I rely on a lot of accumulated bits of unspoken understanding of how games are supposed to work in order to figure out what to do in a new game. Tunic forced me to abandon much of that wisdom. Of course, some universal truths are maintained. When I first came across little hostile creatures, I knew that they were enemies and that I could fight them. When I found the first chest, it made sense that I would get a reward from it. After these early moments, however, not much else could be considered known. To its credit, the game shepherds the player toward the main quest very implicitly. Like many Metroidvanias or action-adventure games, you stumble into obstacles without the appropriate tools. So you kind of follow the path of least resistance until the story officially begins. A few minutes and one cutscene later, your little fox is placed back into the world and let loose. The game continues to guide you somewhat until you reach a pivotal moment where the game gives you a nudge. After finding the first key and placing it in the corresponding door, you find a piece of paper. I'm pretty sure it's impossible to talk about Tunic without discussing the game's manual, and since it's shown in the trailer, I'm going to show it a bit here too. To understand why the manual is so important to the game, first consider what Tunic is trying to do. As an obvious homage to Legend of Zelda, Tunic intends for its look, gameplay, plot, and most importantly, feel to generate nostalgia. Specifically, it wants to create nostalgia for a time when games were still very physical and came in cases that had manuals in them. Back then, putting every explanation for a game into the game itself was a burden for the developer, since cartridges and discs didn't have that much memory, so manuals did a lot of the heavy lifting. They came with cool illustrations and pages to jot down notes or cheat codes. The manual included inside Tunic is a love letter to that lost art. The illustrations feel really tactile, and zooming in shows that they were originally printed. If you shift the booklet to the side, a CRT display with the game can be seen in the background. Very cool. When you pick up the first page of the manual, it curiously starts at page 10. Hopefully it gives the player some pointers on what to do and maybe where to go. Even with some initial guidance, Tunic very clearly indicates that there is a lot more to discover. Pages are missing and you collect them out of order. Ink doodles on the pages seem to indicate important information but don't make sense. Even the language of the manual is cryptic and shrouds all the most essential tips in mystery. This is a good time to mention that Tunic will continue to trickle feed info throughout the entirety of the game. If what I've been describing doesn't sound appealing or isn't really your jam, you probably won't like this game as much as I did. Since so much emphasis is on solving enigmas, the combat system mostly seems like an afterthought. This is especially true in the early game before you find a couple key items. If you're thinking right now, the puzzles and stuff sound okay, but I want to fight all the monsters and level up and have a challenge, then your motivations might be misplaced. On the bright side, Tunic gradually becomes quite challenging, and many of the boss fights gave me a run for my money over and over and over again. Gluttons for punishment will get something out of this game, but I think there are probably better games for that kind of experience. On the flip side, if you're all about puzzles and don't really care to fight anything, this game will hurt you. Many people online compare Tunic to Dark Souls, so do with that what you will. Fortunately, there is a very forgiving easy mode for players that want the story and the mystery without being abused by souped up enemies. I get the impression that the developer wanted Tunic to have something for everyone. I think it mostly succeeds in attracting a broad audience, but combat is not the main draw. The bitter reality of reviewing Tunic is that I could talk for days about its puzzles, its dungeons, its plot twists, and its reveals. But to do so would abhorrently spoil the essence of the game. As much as I want to discuss the later pages of the manual, or the boss fights, or the big reveal, or the second big reveal, or the third big reveal, I have to bottle that up for now. Instead, know that Tunic displays the best qualities of knowledge-based games. It treats its audience well, entrusting that they are smart and motivated and exceptionally curious. Beyond all these things, however, Tunic stands out because it achieves two very rare accomplishments. It made me feel like I was learning to play video games for the first time. And simultaneously, I felt so hollow upon finishing it, knowing that I will never have the same experience again. As much as I want to guarantee that everyone who plays Tunic will feel just like I did, I know some of you will bounce off of it. If you're a bit on the fence or only passively interested, I strongly suggest you give it a go. Tunic makes its mark by proving that looks can be deceiving, and I sincerely hope it manages to surprise you as well.